Welcome back to the realm of Kaiserine Estraya. We are back with Seduce Me Too, the Demon War. We are, I guess the term would be romancing Matthew, even though we're about to be married. But instead of being married, we were dropped dress and all to the demon realm, where we've met Diana. We've met all of her war councils, Cero, Rabbit Faye, Sergeant, and this, at least in timeline, it seems to take place after, obviously, Sergeant is added on in Diana's route, so this is set later, it makes sense considering this is 2 years after the events of the first game, whereas Diana's romance route starts literally right at the end of Diana's route in the first game. So, anyway, we're about to go to bed with Matthew. We don't get the luxury of bow chick bow wowing, unfortunately, but we will still enjoy our love together. So, now that we're back up to speed, Matthew and I continued to walk down the halls of the castle until we arrived at the same ambassador room I had slept in before. I guess that the room was mine for now. Yes, because of course they have to conserve in the amount of art they have to draw, so of course they're just going to reuse the room sprite, of course. Stepping in, Matthew looked around in slight awe.
Whoa, awesome digs.
I know, right? I still want that bed frame. That bed frame is my jam. I had to giggle at Matthew's surprise. It was almost like we had stepped into a hotel on a vacation, except this one was forced on us until the end of a civil war, and we could die. And the demon lord wants me, for some reason. It was mildly messed up, but it was a situation we had to deal with. Yeah. I walked over to the bed and sat down, letting out a sigh at feeling the softness underneath me. The bed was still as comfy as last night, and now we get to cuddle. Matthew, however, began to walk around the room, taking in the sight of the decor.
This is a really fancy room. Wonder what room the others got.
I smiled, watching Matthew ponder for a moment before replying to his statement. Yeah, apparently this is the open ambassador's room. I was able to sleep here when I arrived. Matthew stared at me dumbfounded for a moment before slapping his forehead and shaking his head.
Right. Time's different here. Holy crap, I forgot about that.
Yeah, me too. How long has it been? Wait, huh? I became confused as to what Matthew meant. What did he mean about time being different here? Matthew looked up at me and grinned sheepishly.
Well, how do I explain this without making it confusing?
I really like the voice actor for this, for Matthew. It's got a sincerity to it, and it's got, like, just that cute, it's a cute voice, and it matches this character very well. Matthew rubbed the back of his head, staring at the fireplace before speaking.
Well, you see, time moves faster here compared to the human world. Like, much faster. If I remember right, then I think the time difference is every 5 hours here is 1 hour there? Maybe?
Every 5 hours here is an hour there, maybe. So, like, one day. So, yeah. One day is just 5 hours in the human world. Wait, what? Huh? So, if I was here for a day, then Matthew took a moment to do the math before nodding and speaking again.
Yeah, that's right. You were gone from the human world for about 5 hours.
Called it. 5 hours? I was astonished. The time difference was really prominent and a little disorienting. Didn't that mean time moved faster here? I was getting confused, holding my head, trying to unscramble my thoughts as they collided. Matthew, however, rushed over to me and sat down next to me, hip to hip.
Hey, don't worry about it, okay? We found you, so that's all that matters.
I mean, the wedding's still a no-go, so I'm freaking out. I could only nod before looking at the ground. It was a lot to take in, but at least I wasn't really missing for a day in the human world. However, I was going to be here in a week, so according to the time differences, I would be missing for more than a day. How is everyone home going to react? I can only hope that something was used as a cover to delay the wedding or the like. I look up to Matthew, now a bit concerned.
Huh? What is it?
The wedding, doofus. What happened while I was missing? Matthew frowned a bit and rubbed his head, running his hands through his fluffy hair as he spoke, staring at his knees.
Well, when you didn't come with the rings, we got kind of worried and tried to call you. When you didn't pick up, we kind of panicked, but Irene and Iridessa decided to rush over to the house to see what had happened. They came back, saying you were gone. We pretty much scrambled to use our magic to wipe everyone's memories, reschedule everything, and use the time to find out what happened.
How much time did you give us? Matthew pressed his lips together, most likely remembering what he felt during my absence. I felt bad, but there was nothing I could have done to stop it. Matthew shook his head and continued.
I guess we have to thank Simon for finding you.
Simon?
Without him, we wouldn't have figured out what happened.
Oh, right. He probably saw. Simon? Matthew nodded before stuffing his hand in his pocket and pulling out the infuriating stuffed animal. Simon blinked a couple times before looking at me and giggling like he normally did. Okay. Okay, Simon's my favorite character. Hands down. That laugh was the best laugh. Oh, I wish I could hear it again. Simon! Simon jumped from Matthew's hands into my arms and crawled up onto my shoulder, becoming immobile like a doll once he settled between my neck and my shoulder. I gave his head a little pat before looking back to Matthew. Well, he was the one who hid the rings. I had to find him.
I know, but after you were taken, he helped us pinpoint where you were, and bam! Here we are.
Well, I guess Simon was good for something. He cares about us. Matthew chuckled a bit as he ruffled some of Simon's fur.
I guess this little furball was useful after all.
You know, that actually makes me kind of nervous. Like, useful after all. So, you know, because of the premonition of, like, him being, like, toys are only meant to be played with and then destroyed. And, like, that thing, it's like, toys don't have to be useful, you know? Well, you know, and also it's like people don't necessarily need to be useful to be worth things. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. I could only smile before leaning over to kiss Matthew's cheek, making him gasp slightly. Oh yeah, he's been without energy for 5 hours. Huh? At least he found me. Soon we'll be able to go home and get married like we planned. It gave me a little hope to let the thought sink in. Despite the terrible situation we were in, we would soon be able to go home. I was positive we would win this war, and everything will work out just fine in the end. Matthew seemed to agree, nodding as well with a smile.
Yeah. We'll go home soon.
Yeah, in a week. Matthew wrapped his arms around me and nuzzled the side of my head, making me softly giggle. My body felt relieved to have him near me, causing me to wrap my own arms around him. My heart was jumping with joy, regardless of the situation we were in. Oh, how sweet. Simon took the cue to hop off of my shoulder and quickly skittered across the floor and up the fireplace mantel, resting on it with the decor and sat on it. That's cute. Too bad it doesn't actually show up. That would have been so cute. Matthew, however, soon released me and fell back onto the bed, feeling its softness.
Man, it's been so long since I felt a demon bed.
It's a demon. It's specifically a demon bed. What's the difference from a regular bed? Matthew grinned up at me and crossed his hand behind his head, lounging back on the mattress.
Well, demons don't sleep in this world, so we get very comfy beds just so we can lay back and relax on.
No. You're not relaxing. You're getting energy. Wait, demons don't sleep?
Nah, we're too paranoid that people will kill us in our sleep.
Oh, great. Then how the heck do you function?
Energy and food. As long as we have both, we can pretty much be awake 24/7.
The way that Matthew seemed relaxed about the whole thing made it seem like he liked it being here. A part of me was curious on whether or not he liked being in this world more than the human world, but I had to remember. He went to the human world of his own accord. Besides, he was ready to marry me and live his entire life in my world. Matthew stretched and let out a groan before relaxing on the bedsheets, letting out a small yawn. How cute.
Oh, I'm tired. You want to hit the hay?
I want to hit something else. I nodded, feeling exhaustion run over me, causing me to lie back and cuddle to Matthew, nuzzling into his shoulder. He chuckled before wrapping an arm around me. He's a lot less childish in this one than the other one.
I love you so much.
Aww.
I promise we'll get home soon.
Yay! I love you too. I smiled, kissing his cheek before closing my eyes and drifting to sleep. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. Wow, there wasn't even an option. All right. Fine. No sexy times. However, as I opened my eyes, I found myself not looking at Matthew or in my bed, but felt the cold ground beneath me and something tightly wrapped around my neck. Oh no, not this again. What the? No, not again. Oh, it's Diana's cell. I looked down, seeing my skin dusty and dirty, which added only more confusion. What was happening to me? I reached up and gasped once more as I felt a familiar collar around my neck, a chain dangling from the front and running behind me. No! I instinctively grabbed the collar, trying to pull it back from my neck, but as I did, something yanked the chain connected to it and caused me to fall back, knocking the wind out of me. No! Ah! I turned my head to the chain pull to see a familiar imp demon glaring down at me and gripping onto my chain. It was the same imp demon from the vision Matthew showed me when Diana came around. But how could this be? I quickly grabbed the chain and tried to yank it from his hands, wanting to be free, but found no strength to actually pull it out of the imp's grasp. The imp merely cackled and pulled the chain again, making me fall forward onto my stomach. Ow. I froze. This was another dream, and I could tell that Matthew was going to be the villain once again. My mind began to panic as I scrambled up to my hands and knees, looking around at the predicament I was in. I was in a large steel cage. My chain hung out between the bars in the hands of an imp guarding my cell. I had no neighbors, nor did I hear anyone else in the space with me. This was definitely a dream, and I needed to wake up before Matthew came around. He knew what he would do with me. This was a dream, after all. I looked around the room, slowing my breath and trying to think logically. What could I do? The first thing was to do something about the chain around my neck. Then I could try to break the door down somehow and be free. Seemed like a good idea. Yeah. I quickly grabbed the chain again and swiveled on the ground to be on my bottom, locking my feet against the door and pulling the chain back. I managed to get some purchase, and luckily the imp couldn't manage to pull me forward from my struggle. A large bolt of red lightning suddenly traveled down the chain and shocked my collar around my neck, causing me to release a soundless scream. My body became electrocuted in red light and energy, sending waves of pain through every part of me. God. As he finally stopped, I let out a gasp and fell back onto the ground, shaking from my aftermath. My body felt entirely jittery, and licks of pain brushed over my nerves from the shock. What the hell? Oh, man. Man, like, torture trigger warning with this. Like, ugh. I could barely look over at the imp from the pain I was feeling, seeing him smirk at what he had done. However, as soon as I saw the grin appear on its ugly lips, a foot jammed into the side of the imp's head, causing it to buckle over. Huh?
You fucking pig fawn! What did you do?
Whoa. Alright. I love this convenient, like, it blew all over and then just conveniently, waist down. Just nothing. Look at his blue horns. It's pretty cute. Well, I don't know what to say about what he said, though. My eyes glanced over to see Matthew in his demon form, glaring daggers at the fallen imp with his foot jammed into his cheek. As he looked at me, still angered with a snarl across his expression, I gasped, seeing the familiar cold gold color over his eyes. Not in his sprite. The evil Matthew had returned. Gingerly, Matthew took up my chain and pulled me to the door, leaning in and keeping the chain beneath his head so he could bring my head close to him as he could without me being pulled against the bars on the door. Staring into his eyes, I was surprised to feel calm and almost hopeful that maybe this was a different Matthew, the one who wasn't cruel and full of ill intent. Then again, he kept me in a cell and didn't release me, so that was a sign I was wrong. Despite this, he spoke calmly and almost comfortingly.
Did he hurt you?
Of course I nodded. Whatever electrocution the imp had done made me feel like I was dying for a split second. Matthew, in response to my reply, glared at the imp with a deadly pair of eyes, causing the victim in question to slink back against the wall.
I order you not to hurt her. If she's hurt, then she can't give me proper energy, and I won't be able to rule this world properly. Do you know how much of a problem that would be?
Oh man. The imp opened his mouth to protest. God, that noise. But as soon as he did, Matthew formed a knife in the air and chucked it into his open mouth, a splash of blood erupting from behind the imp's head as the knife embedded itself into the back of his throat. Holy shit. With a garbled whimper, the imp slowly collapsed to the ground, dying at last. I, however, could only watch horrified with my hands over my mouth. What was going on? Matthew turned back to me and pulled my chain slightly, causing me to look back at him with fearful eyes.
There. Now he won't hurt you anymore.
True. Why are you doing this? Let me go. Matthew's face slowly shifted to a cold, sadistic glare.
I would. But how will I know that you won't run away from me?
Good question, because I think I would run. I began to panic. I wanted to be free. I wanted to run, but Matthew here wasn't going to let me go, and I didn't want to stay in the cell any longer. Despite every fiber in my body wanting me to awaken, I couldn't. Well, these choices are not great, let me tell you. These are not great at all. I mean, not saying anything, I feel like he would like force me to say something. And then and then if I say, I promise I won't run, I don't know. Make me your queen. That's kind of weird. I guess make me your queen. We'll just try it. This was crazy. He had me as a prisoner, a slave to his whim. However, he seemed to care enough about me to kill someone for hurting me. It was worth a shot. Matthew, however, almost let out almost a bark of a laugh. Oh shit.
Me, king of the demon world, marry a human? Like hell I will. Besides, even if I made you a succubus, your energy would be wasted.
Aw. But, babe. My heart broke into pieces, but my anger flared. This was not my Matthew. I gripped to the bars and snarled through them at my captor, imagining the man in front of me as a stranger and not the man I loved. What is wrong with you? Let me go! Yes, I had to say that in the most, not... A violent cackle erupted from Matthew as he leaned close to me, pulling my chain harder to pull me against the door. Oh shit.
That's okay. Get angry. You know what they say. Angry sex is always the best.
Rapey vibes. Oh god. Well, let's not think about that. I snarled even harder, disgusted at his words. This was not the man I loved, nor would he ever be in my dreams. Matthew only let out a chuckle as he finally drew back and slid his hand up to the end of my chain.
I'm not in the mood to take your energy now. I'll come back another time.
Well, good. Get out of here, asshole. With a flash of blue energy, the chain in his hand vanished and reappeared above me, giving me enough slack to let me lie down, but only if it was directly underneath it. Well, that sucks. I grimaced and pulled at the chain, wanting to still be free from it, but only heard a chuckle from Matthew's cruel sadism as he turned and began to walk away.
You better be prepared when I get back. I've got a world to rule after all. Can't spend all my time making sure you're ready.
That's pretty gross. I can imagine what he means by that, and it's pretty gross. And he slides away! A violent quake ran through my body and began to struggle harder, making him laugh as he left the hall out of my sight. Let me go! Let me go! So I guess that was the, rape trigger warning, I guess. Mentions of rape trigger warning sort of thing. I shut my eyes tightly, pulling and tugging as much as I could. Despite it being to no avail, I screamed once again, this time breaking the illusion around me and waking up at last. Let me go! Let me go! I sat up, singing through the air as my hands clasped themselves around my neck. My scream reverberated throughout the room, barely letting me notice Matthew falling out of bed beside me. Poor guy, he's like, holy shit, what the fuck? Yeah. I quickly looked over at the sound of a hard thump on the ground, seeing Matthew's curly head peek out from over the side of the bed. His hand ran over his hair as a pain groan escaped his lips. Aw, I'm sorry, babes. Oh my god. Sorry, just had to ogle. I'm sorry. Ignoring what had just happened to me, I scrambled across the bed and slid off the bed to kneel beside Matthew. Luckily, he wasn't badly hurt, but he rubbed his head, obviously disoriented from falling out of bed. To add more insult to injury, Simon had crawled down from the mantel and began to poke at Matthew with his mini knife. Thankfully, the knife wasn't actually sharp, so all it did was prod and poke at Matthew's skin without drawing blood. Simon's a demon. Like, I was about to call Simon a demon. Wow. Simon's a mischievous little thing. Favorite character.
Simon! Simon, knock it off!
Yeah, Simon. Matthew flailed his arm, almost knocking Simon away with his hand. Taking the hint, Simon jumped onto the bed and began to hop around on top of it as his own distraction while I looked to Matthew. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
Huh? Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. Oh.
Yeah, you know you're not okay. Matthew grimaced, stretching his back and neck before shaking his head and looking up at me, slightly bleary-eyed from sleep.
Are you okay? Or did you have another nightmare?
You said that you wouldn't sleep, so why would his eyes be bleary from sleep? Looked down at the ground between us, remembering the nightmare I was trapped in. I could only nod, pressing my lips together, causing Matthew to frown.
I'm sorry. Do you want a hug?
Such an innocent thing to ask for. A hug. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like, of course, please, I want a hug. Despite the nightmare, I still loved Matthew and needed him with me. I knew the dreams I was having weren't real, and even if they were trying to warn me of something, Matthew was still the man I was going to be married to. The man I was going to be married to. Matthew smiled softly before swiveling onto his knees and hugging me to his body, laying my head on his shoulder. I wrapped my arms around him and closed my eyes, taking in his reassuring scent. She really likes his scent. As a set of knocks appeared at our door, however, Matthew and I shot our heads in the direction of the sound.
Oi! Time to wake up! We got grub!
We got grub! We got the grub! I can't wait to do Sam's route. It's gonna be so great.
Can you not call it that?
Yeah, really. Matthew and I looked at each other before scrambling up onto the bed, forgetting that Simon was on it. I slid across the bed and sat down, trying to make it seem like I had just woken up, as Matthew tried to crawl over, but wound up making Simon release a heavy squeak.
Ah!
Ah! Once again, Matthew fell off the bed and landed on the floor, releasing another shout of pain. Oh, God, dude, you're so clumsy. You're a demon. Don't just like float. Just be like, demon wings. Just like hover there. That's my solution.
Is everything all right in there?
No. We were making passionate love, and you just ruined it. Ruined it.
We're fine. We're fine.
Simon, cackling at Matthew's mistake, scrambled back up onto the fireplace mantel and became a doll once more as I cleared my throat. Come in. As the door opened, Matthew threw himself onto the mattress, placing his head on his hand like he had completely planned to kneel beside the bed as his brothers and wives entered the plates with food in their hands. Damien and Twilla, the ones who were carrying the extra plates of food, stopped and stared at us with raised eyebrows. Damien, of course, looked over at the mantel at Simon before smiling and shaking his head, passing the extra plate to Matthew.
Thanks, bro.
You're welcome, Matthew.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Twilla placed her extra plate in my hands and smiled before walking over to an empty space with Damien and eating. On the plates were sliced fruits, breads, cheese, and some sort of jerky. It's demon jerky. James and Sam, however, were the only ones who didn't start indulging in what was on the menu.
So, we have less than a week to prepare for the Demon Lord.
You know, fuck me. But I'm excited as shit to finally get to kick his ass into the ground.
I love Sam. You know, fuck me. Okay. The other brothers seemed to agree, even Matthew. However, I was stuck on the nightmare that I had before. I incautiously rubbed my neck, remembering to feel the collar around my neck. Doing so caught Irides's attention.
Hey, what's wrong? Did you hurt your neck?
I instantly looked up and stared, seeing everyone now look at me in curiosity. I shook my head violently, not wanting anyone to know what had happened. Well, what had mentally happened. I'm fine. The wives seemed unconvinced, but they nodded anyway. The boys, however, focused on the battle ahead of us. They're just like, steamroll ahead.
So, do we plan on training like we usually do?
By beating the shit out of each other? Yeah.
That seems to be the best plan. It's been a long time since we've actually fought in a battle.
That means that they've done it before. Well,
Have you
Malik's,
fought
I guess.
Before?
Yeah, I was about to... She knows. She gets it. The boys, despite the shame in their eyes, nodded slowly in unison. Aww.
Part of us living in our father's castle involved receiving the occasional unexpected visitor.
Holy crap, man. I remember one time there was this group that just stormed in and tried to take on the old man, but he sent James to take care of him. I'd never seen James so pissed off before.
That's because they threatened to burn the castle down if I didn't surrender. Obviously, that was out of the question.
Yeah, I mean... burning down the Demon Lord's castle would be fine, but not burning the people within it, except for the Demon Lord. He can burn. Burn in hell. You know, I'm sure the hierarchy is like heaven and purgatory, human world, demon world, and then hell. Those are the 5 realms.
Well, Sam, what about you when you got into those fights with the army generals? They weren't too happy about you being so testy with them.
They got cocky and thought they could push me around. Fuck them and good riddance.
He's such a punk. I love it. The more I listened, the more the battle story seemed more about James, Eric, and Sam. Damien obviously stayed out of the fighting, but what about Matthew? I looked at Matthew, seeing him simply eat his food, staring down at his plate. Did he have nothing to add to the conversation? Well... Well, I am curious. What about you, babes? Matthew looked up at me in surprise, a piece of jerky wedged between his teeth and lips. Aw. Huh? I fought back giggling at the sight, but as everyone turned around, it's like Kaiser having like pizza rolls. Just like la 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 la. He looks over me. Huh? But as everyone turned over and looked at Matthew, I relaxed a bit and waited. I was curious to see if Matthew had any stories of his own to tell. To my surprise, Matthew swallowed the jerky in his mouth and shook his head.
No, I wasn't the fighting type. Never have been, really.
Yeah, makes sense. My mind flashed back to him fighting Malix, and how he managed to not only duck and dodge Malix's gun, but also to make Swiss cheese out of the devil in question. Why would Matthew lie? Sam scoffed and spit into the fireplace, making us all look over at him.
What a crock of bullshit, Pipsqueak.
Sam's the best.
Bullshit! What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Don't fucking play dumb with me. I remember you massacring an entire gang of Vince because they looked at your mom funny. I was the one who had to clean that shit up.
Oh, okay. It all makes sense now. It's only for Mommy Dearest. I suddenly went wide-eyed at Matthew, who in turn stared right at me with a fearful frown on his face. He got into fights here? I guess it was to be expected of a demon to at least get into one fight in their life, but Matthew in a massacre?
No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't me.
It was totally you.
Like hell it wasn't.
Dude, shut up!
Make me!
Sam, God, chill out.
I will!
Oh shit. Matthew and Sam jumped out of their seats and marched at each other, slamming their foreheads together and snarling, fire burning in each other's eyes. I quickly rushed up and pulled at Matthew's arm, trying to bring him back to the bed. Matthew, calm down.
Sam, knock it off.
Despite Carrie also pulling Sam's arm, neither of us could pull our incubus away from the other. As they battled each other with their eyes, they're just like... The air in the room became full of tense energy until suddenly both the boys were swatted over the head.
Fuck!
Oh shit!
Ow!
Both of you! That's enough!
Thank you, James. Looked up to see James holding his fist that he used to sock his brothers with A glare painted all over his face. Matthew and Sam looked up to their eldest brother, both irritated being hit, but silent enough to know not to talk back. Being the oldest sibling's the best. A moment passed before Sam stood up straight and shook his head, finally allowing Carrie to pull him back to a spot where they could sit down.
Whatever.
Matthew, on the other hand, straightened up and continued to glare at James, almost in defiance. Something sparked in his eyes, something that made me worried, so I pulled his arm back, trying to catch his attention. Hey, come on. Matthew finally looked at me, slowly receding back to his normal gaze, before nodding and rubbing his head over the newly formed bruise while sitting down beside me.
Well, this is an interesting family reunion.
You're telling me, Diana. Diana's voice suddenly made all of us turn to the door and see her and Seto in the doorway, with Diana leaning against the archway. As she pushed off and stepped in, Seto followed and closed the door.
Can we help you?
Possibly, if you all want to survive this war and go home. Especially you, my dear.
Diana looked over to me and crossed her arms under her bosom. What do you mean? Diana ran a hand through her hair and looked around the room, pressing her lips into a fine line.
So, about all of you participating in the war, you all obviously need to train.
Everyone nodded in agreement to Diana's statement. While we weren't battle ready, we still needed to at least know how to defend ourselves. Diana, however, looked to me.
You, most of all.
Huh? Me? I was suddenly confused. How come I was the odd one out that had to be ready the most? The last thing I remember about me training was that Diana was against the idea altogether.
Apparently, there are guidelines to breaking this curse. Not only do we have to kill the Demon Lord, but you have to be nearby when it happens for the curse to even break.
Well, fuck. That throws a wrench into this entire ordeal. That makes no sense. Where did you learn this?
Shadow. He spent the night trying to find alternative ways to break your curse. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything of the sort, but we found the guidelines to breaking it.
Well, it still makes no sense.
Even while it doesn't, it's still better to be safe than sorry. I don't want to kill him and then still have you stuck here because of an error.
Yeah, very true. I could only sigh and take it in. So I had to be there when the Demon Lord fell. Great. Diana waved her hand dismissively through the air, breaking my potential thoughts.
Anyway, we can't have you dying on the way there, and we can't monitor you when we're in battle. You should at least know how to defend yourself. That's why we've come up with a solution.
Huh? What solution?
Simple.
The final
The other rebel leaders
solution.
and Sarah have agreed that if you'd like a trainer to enhance your abilities, you can train with one of them.
I stared, seeing Seto step forward with a nod.
Each of the leaders is proficient in a different area of magic and battle strategy, good enough for self-defense. I can't speak for the others, but I can assure you that with Sarah's skill and training methods, you will be well prepared by the time the siege arrives.
Well, Seto nodded and bowed to me slightly. While I was flattered at the idea, did I really need a trainer? I knew Taekwondo. In a demon battle. And I at least knew how to defend myself, demon or not. Then again, we were in the demon world where magic was the norm. Thank you. I'd like to train with Sarah. What would the others teach me? I don't need a trainer. What would the others do? Diana ran a hand through her hair, looking to the side as she listed off the leader and their skills.
Sergeant is a brute demon, bred from a nomadic tribe. He most likely teach you the ways of the brute demon, using your fists and speed to keep you alive.
Okay.
Shadow is, by definition, a shadow demon, so he'd probably teach you about dark magic, light manipulation, and assassination.
That sounds badass.
Rabbit is a wild magic-based animal demon, using her animal-focused energy as her weapon. She'd probably teach you how to do the same. Fae? I am honestly not sure. I know they can change their size and use elemental magic as well, but to be honest, I do not know what they would teach you.
Alright, we need to choose. So, confession time. When I did Damien's route, I actually chose Diana. However, weirdly enough, she's not even a choice on here. It's very strange. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe maybe it depends on your route, on like who the options are. But yeah, before I chose Diana, and that's what led me to do her romance route the next time after Damien, because like you learn so much about her and you realize, wow, she's like a super sweetheart. But you know, we've gone through a romance route now, so we do know. So who else to choose? I'm still really mad at Sarah. I still don't want to like choose him because like he's like, I know he's such a little shit, and I don't want to have to see him getting all haughty with Diana just yet. My heart's not ready for that. So Faye is interesting because, well, actually all the other three are interesting. I don't really care for Sergeant though. Not yet anyway. Basically, I think the idea is choose a different person each romance route, right? Because it's like there's 5 boys and then 5 of these other characters. So, and I'm not gonna do I don't need a trainer. That's stupid. Let's see. I choose. Let's do my crush. Let's do Shadow this time. Diana nodded. Shadow seemed very intelligent and knew the ins and outs of being sneaky and dodgy. It would definitely help in a battle not to get hit and maybe take enemies by surprise. Perfect. With that, Diana turned on her heel and left the room.
Finish eating. Afterwards, you should start training.
Fuck yeah, I'm ready. Everyone in the room nodded their affirmation as Diana and Seto left.
Well, it looks like we'll be busy for the next couple of days.
Yep.
This'll be fun.
Man, training's gonna suck.
Yeah, it is.
It'll be worth it, though.
Damien's right.
As we all finished eating, everyone left to either train or do things on their own. I left to start my own work, determined to be prepared for what was to come. The Demon Lord wasn't going to win, and I wouldn't let him. Choosing Shadow defied almost every part of my moral compass. He seemed like a fantastical sociopath, lacking a care for anyone but the Warren himself. Still, I had to admit his personality made me curious about his abilities. Yeah, fair enough. After all, he was the one that almost sent me back home through Diana's shadow. As a memory of the void filled my thoughts, I began to try and dissect how it was done. Were Shadow's doorways here? Was Shadow just that powerful? How exactly was he able to a person... What? How exactly was he able to a person's shadow into a void through the world? Wow, that sentence is not a sentence. I think I get what it's trying to say. Maybe that was the reason why I chose him as my trainer. My curiosity about his abilities were pecking at me and I needed answers. Learning some of those abilities was just the icing on the cake. Ooh! I like this place. It's like a library. I love his outfit. I would like cosplay that in an instant. I was guided to the library by a scout, most likely under orders, and found Shadow reading through scrolls on a table near the fireplace. What is this, the Dark Brotherhood? Good lord. Upon me entering, Shadow looked over.
Ah, there you are. Come, sit.
Shadow motioned a hand towards one of the seats almost dismissively as he continued to pore over what he was reading. I followed his directions and sat down on a chair, watching him. For a full minute, he said nothing. Oh boy, I picked the edgelord. I watched as he read each line off the scrolls before him and occasionally switched scrolls to read what the others had written down on them. The handwriting was in hastily scribbled Latin, so there was no way for me to understand it. However, I began to feel agitated. Weren't we supposed to be training? Stand up or excuse me. So, depending on, like, how you treat this character, I'm pretty sure you can, like, get to know them better or not. Like, with Damien's route, I partnered with Diana, and, you know, she crowned me, like, as her friend. Like, she gave me Lilith's protection, and it was this cool thing. I learned a lot about her, and it was cool. But, to me, it just made sense, like, how to treat her, but this is a little bit of a mystery to me. You know, is he the type to be like, well, he doesn't like how Sergeant is so like, action. Bleh. So I should probably say, excuse me. Sumimasen. I need to get his attention. This was a little ridiculous. Was he not told that he was supposed to actually train me? Why would he expect me, though? Despite my statement, Shadow continued to ignore me and kept browsing through the scrolls on the table. Shadow. Still nothing. I was becoming even more agitated at the silence. I decided to simply stand up, hopefully to catch his attention. Oh shit, I think I made the wrong decision. However, as I attempted to, I felt myself unable to push off against the chair, like I was stuck to the seat. Huh? I looked at the chair I was in. It was a simple chair. How was I stuck? I wiggled a bit in my seat, noting that it wasn't sitting on anything sticky, nor anything keeping me down physically. What the hell? This is your training. Get out of this chair. I tended to stand once more, unable to move any farther than a centimeter up from the seat, sending me before needing to sit back down.
Do you understand now, human?
Yes. I looked up at Shadow, seeing him continue to visually ignore me, but noticed a small smirk on his lip. He was holding me down somehow?
When you can stand, we will begin.
Shit, man. What a sensei. I'm ready. Teach me your ways. I hope that was the right choice. I want to get like a quote-unquote good end with him. My eyes widened. This was a test. This was an unfair trap of a test that I fell into, and now I had to find my way out. I had to figure out how he was trapping me to stare to the chair and stand. This was going to be an adventure and a half. I looked down and around my body and around the seat, seeing my shadow beneath me. It was pretty obvious that he was using my shadow to hold me down, but the question was, how was I going to break his hold? I took a moment and let my thoughts dissect the problem. He was holding me by the shadow. He had to have been, it only made sense. If I somehow made my shadow disappear, then his hold would vanish along with it. However, how was I going to do that? My shadow was beneath me, formed by the shape of my body and the firelight. Okay, so move the light. Then it hit me. The firelight. I looked at the fireplace, seeing it burn bright from the pyre within its mouth. It illuminated the room and gave every person and object a shadow. As I stared into it, my plan became set. I smirked as I gripped the armrest and planted my feet onto the floor. I pulled the chair up onto one of its legs, pushing off the ground with my left foot, and completely turned the chair around, facing away from it. My entire body became covered in shadow, but I knew my plan had worked. Another felt a hold on me, keeping me in the chair. My shadow vanished in the new darkness around me. I quickly pushed off of the chair, finally being able to stand. It seemed so freeing to be able to stand again, having been trapped in that chair. As I felt my body stand up straight, Shadow let out an impressed,
Quicker than I anticipated.
I glared. Did he honestly think that little of me? Yeah. Yeah, he does. Seriously? Just leave. I don't want to leave, though. I don't want to leave. I don't want to just leave. He's still got to train me. Okay. I had to stare at Shadow like he had 5 heads. As he turned to me, he smirked at my facial expression, causing me to fight back the urge to snap at him.
I had to see how intelligent you were. I'm not going to waste time on someone who doesn't know how to use their brain.
Yeah. Despite the insult, I could feel that he was underhandedly complimenting me in some twisted way. I guess what I was able to pull out of his statement was that I was smart enough to fend for myself. Yeah? I could tell that this was going to be both an annoying process, but at least an interesting one. Shadow shook his head and stepped away from the table towards me. He gripped the chair I was on and turned it back towards the face of the fireplace before crossing his arms.
What I will be teaching you are mere basics of dark magic. You will be able to hide in plain sight, control your environment, and even defend against impossible odds. I expect you to use these abilities wisely. Understood?
Yes. I suddenly became excited. I would be able to do all those things? The idea of it all became rather fascinating and outright too good to be true. However, I was in the demon world. Anything was possible. I am so fucking ready. Let's fucking go. I want to be a swiggity assassin. I'm probably not going to actually, assassinate anything, but you know. I nodded and mentally prepared for whatever he threw my way. I wouldn't fall for another trap. You're totally going to fall for another trap. Shadow took in a breath and let out a silent sigh before closing his eyes. His body slowly became pitch black, covered by a wave of shadow despite the firelight on his body. His form slowly melted down into the ground and faded into the shadow of the table beside him. Ooh. Wow! I didn't expect the sprite to actually disappear. Nunny? I became confused, but as I stood for a moment, there was only a silence as a reply. Was this what he meant by using my brain? I had to copy him? How did he even do that? How was I even going to start trying? You're not going to tell me how you did that? I was once again greeted by silence, making me let out a sigh. I had to figure it out. I replayed the spell in my head from memory, trying to discern how he made himself a shadow. Maybe I had to think about becoming a shadow. Be one with the shadow. Embrace the shadow. White shadow. Did that even make sense? No. Closed my eyes and tried to imagine darkness covering me. As stupid as it was worth a shot. However, as I did, something in my nerves seemed to make me hesitate. I could sense a feeling of cold dread try and take over my body as I thought about the darkness. Was this something I was supposed to feel? I felt suddenly scared and started to second guess my desire to learn about dark magic.
Why are you hesitating?
I heard Shadow's voice rumble through the air, causing me to question the training. Did I want to go through with this? Yeah. Like, I shook my head. I needed to be brave about this. This was a new set of skills I could use in battle. I just had to take it slow. I closed my eyes again, took a deep breath, and focused on becoming a shadow. Be one with a shadow. A cold feeling ran through my body, crawling over my skin and completely enveloping me in its embrace. Soon my entire body had become shrouded in frozen numbness. As in my eyes, I gasped at the sight. Shadow was once again in front of me, but the room around us had become visually dark and misty, like it was another world. My body felt light as I stepped toward my trainer in confusion. Shadow lifted an arm and gestured dismissively around us toward the environment.
Welcome to the Shadow Plane.
Welcome to the Shadow Plane. That's so fucking cool. The Shadow Plane?
Indeed. Think of it as a copy of the real world. But no one lives here except shadows.
I furrowed my eyebrows, still confused, but gasped as I heard quick footsteps rushing outside the door. I was shocked to see demons in black hoods and cloaks running back and forth along the hall. Oh, cool! I can see his minions, because, he's the leader of the shadow demons. So, this is, his realm. This is a whole nother plane of existence that, no one else would know about. And in battle, that's gonna work out so perfect. I'll just be like, going to the Shadow Plane. And then I'll just be like, ooh, just go to wherever.
Those are my scouts. They use this plane to travel without being hindered by other beings. They're much quicker this way.
Hell yeah. I looked at the ground, seeing it coated completely black in darkness. How was I able to be here if this was a new plane? I thought I was trapped in the demon world. How can I be here if I'm cursed?
This plane is part of the demon world, so the curse does not affect you coming here. We are currently shadows of the real world. Untouchable and barely traceable.
Perfect! I nodded, taking in at what he was saying, so I was able to roam around now and not be seen. That was an interesting power. Shadow began to walk out of the room, ushering me to follow him. Oh, I'm so ready. Take me.
See the benefit of this world in action.
Yes! I am an eager learner. I quickly followed, excited to see what we were going to do. Where would we go? What was it going to show me? I'm so excited. Shadow and I walked quietly through the halls. I could faintly see outlines of people who were not in the shadow plane and became shocked to see Shadow simply pass through them as if they weren't there. A couple people passed through me. I instinctively felt strange, but physically felt nothing. It was like I was a ghost. Ooh, I'm a ghost, hunting you. We were truly shadows. So cool. We arrived at the war room. Shadow stopped me and peered inside. I crouched and looked through the door as well, hiding at an instinct. Who are you? Look how cute you are. You have kitty ears. Aww. I love her. Best girl. Inside were Diana and a person covered by a cloak. Diana's face painted the situation's emotions very clearly as one of the agitation towards the girl who stood before her attention.
Shama, I understand that he didn't accept it, but where did you take it?
I was told to throw it away.
Shamatan?
Your master told you to throw it away.
As I said, ma'am.
Diana gazed at the hooded figure, burrowing her stare into her soul. However, Diana could only sigh. What was Diana talking about? What did the figure throw away?
Very well. You are dismissed.
The demon bowed and left the room, passing through me and Shadow. It still felt weird that people were able to go through me, but it shook out as Shadow cleared his throat.
Scare the succubus.
Scare the succubus? What? This seems like a bad idea. I'm gonna get myself killed. I looked up at Shadow, surprised at his demand. However, his cold gaze pierced back into mine, letting me know that he was serious about what he'd asked of me. Instantly became nervous and a little fearful. I had to scare Diana? How? She's like Queen of the Rebellion. The idea of appearing behind her came to mind, but Shadow seemed to know what I was thinking.
Scare her from this plane.
Now things became complicated. This was a space where I was just walking through people. How was I even going to face her in this world? I looked into the room, taking note of everything. The light in the room was pretty bright. Her shadow was cast against the wall, mimicking Diana's actual movements. Was I able to do anything with that? What about the light in the room? Was it possible to dim the lights like a ghost? Seemed a bit complicated, but it could be fun. I took a moment to think before deciding. Well, fuck. Bruh. I don't know. Mess with her shadow or mess with the lights? Well, is she gonna even see her shadow? So, let's try the shadow. It seemed like the most simple plan, so I decided to go through with it. I quickly rushed in and hugged the wall next to Diana's shadow. With a closer view, the shadow seemed almost like detailed as the real person. Every strand of her hair had pigment of darkness. It seemed kind of cool the more I stared, but I had a job to do. I focused on her head, noting the horns protruding it. The shadow made it look like she had ears. Fairly cute. Maybe that could do something. I raised a hand and ran my fingers along the horns of the shadow, hoping to grasp it somehow. Oh no! I don't think I scared her! Suddenly I shot my head to Diana as she released a moan. She bent over the table, gripping the horn I caressed via shadow with a slightly shaky hand. What the hell? You didn't scare her. Did I do that? Diana looked around, her face as red as tomato. Were her horns a weakness? Oh. I grazed my finger along her shadow over her other horn out of curiosity. This is the best. I made the best choice. This is the best. Diana gripped her other horn and bent over further, hiding her horns in her shadow. Damn. However, I became mildly excited. I could touch her without touching her. This made no sense, but it was working. I could only guess that this was the power of shadow demons. Diana stood up straight, taking in a breath before letting out a sigh.
Dear, I know you're there.
Aww, man. What the hell? How did you know? As shadow switched to the real world, I felt my body force itself back as well, like I had run out of energy. I finally felt warmth consume my body, making me feel dizzy and lightheaded. Oh, what?
She's done quite well. She went into the shadow plane without much hesitation.
I see.
She's probably like really pissed at me. She's like, okay, unwanted physical contact. And actually hugged the wall, feeling the after effects of transfer dance over my body like rippling waves of the mind. Or of wind, sorry. It felt so strange. I knew I had a lot of energy, but I wasn't able to stay in the shadow plane for long.
I'm surprised she managed to stay there for as long as she did. I expected her to phase out before we came here.
To do what, exactly?
Shadow stared at Diana blankly before turning towards the door and walking out.
Come. We have more work to do, human.
I hope I did well. The irritated look on Diana's face looked semi-hilarious, but I shook my head and ran after Shadow, pumped to learn more. Fuck yeah, man. How did I do all of that?
Curious, are you?
I am. Well, yeah, I am your student, after all. I want to know. As we walked back to the library, Shadow looked at me and gave a slight smirk.
You are quite interesting for a human.
Oh, I totally did good. He's happy with me. Quite interesting for a human. I felt a bit flattered and ran my hand behind my neck, bearing a shy smile. I had to admit, I was acting like a little girl who had just learned about candy. Still, I had a very good reason. I did something I never imagined I could do. I thought that she didn't have magical powers anymore. Obviously she does. It was well worth the excitement. Shadow shook his head and let out a sigh.
It is impossible for us to touch anyone in the shadow plane, let alone assassinate them. It is very possible to distract them, or affect the light sources of the world.
But I did touch her. Like how I did?
Indeed. A shadow is more than just a reaction to light. It is also a part of a person's being, able to be used to, let's just say, get a message across.
So I can't kill anyone from the shadow plane.
No, but you can very easily make them feel as if they aren't alone, putting them on alert and giving you a good chance to kill them while they're distracted.
I took a moment to take in what he meant. I could see how manipulating the shadows were a great benefit in battle. However, apparently I had a time limit for how long I could be in those shadows. At least it wasn't entirely overpowered. It's OP! I call OP! That was exciting. The remainder of the day became focused on me manipulating light and shadow in the library. While being in the shadow plane was fun, it was only effective if the targets of my movement were either sources of light or had distinct shadows of their own. At the end of the day, I was exhausted. Who knew using dark magic would be so difficult? I don't know. It seems like that would be a normal thing. Still, I guess I had potential, or else I wouldn't have succeeded in passing the test Shadow threw at me. I had to be proud of that much. I slumped and fell onto the ground, exhausted. I definitely used up a lot of energy, and it was a foreign feeling to me as a human. It was like my body became heavier with each breath I took, but it wasn't entirely painful. A small huff caused me to look over at Shadow, seeing him stare at me intensely with crossed arms. What?
For a human, you have a large amount of energy. I'm surprised you're not a witch.
I mean, I could be. Felt a little bolstered by the statement, despite how strangely it was phrased. I guess Shadow really couldn't genuinely compliment anyone. I wondered why. I'm sure it's a tragic tale how his entire family was murdered, and that somehow ties into his whatever. I had much to learn, but was excited for the next day of my training, and I was sent to my room. Exhausted and tired, I marched to my room and opened the door, surprised to see Matthew already there. Oh, hi Matthew. Oh no. Whoa. He's got the chain on him. Wow, that looks cool. However, what was odd about him being in the room was not that he was there before me, but that he was staring at the fire, eyes glazed over in almost a pale blue tint. Something was going on. I walked over and placed my hand on Matthew's shoulder, slowly walking around to look him directly into his eyes. It was almost creepy to see, but he seemed almost dead. Matthew. I gently shook his body, trying to snap him out of whatever trance he was under, but gasped as I spotted a blue ring around his neck. As I did, the air around me became colder and a little darker. What was going on? Panicked, I look around, trying to pin down what was causing this. What? Matthew's voice brought me back to him, hearing his voice drool out of his mouth like an emotionless doll. I gripped Matthew's shoulders tightly and shook him again. Matthew! Still nothing. Why would I smack him? Come on. That's a terrible choice. Kiss him. I had to break him out of whatever spell was consuming his mind, and there was no way as hell I was going to smack him. Thank you! Instead, I took his head into my hand and pulled him into a kiss, locking his lips with him and shutting my eyes. I didn't understand what made me do this, but I was determined to make it work. I waited and waited until Matthew finally wrapped his arms around me and leaned into the kiss, letting me know he possibly broke through. I opened my eyes slightly to see his eyes closed, but his arms around my waist were secure and loving, just how I remembered. As I slowly pulled away, Matthew opened his eyes and revealed their lovely ocean blue color. Perfect. However, his cheeks were a lovely contrast of red.
Hi.
He probably doesn't remember it. I smiled a bit, giggling. Hey, what happened? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was just looking at the fire. It's pretty warm.
Babe, you had a collar. Every part of me didn't believe him. Then again, there was something wrong. Something was wrong, and maybe Matthew was becoming a victim of it. I frowned and cupped his cheek, making him lean into it slightly. Are you sure? You look like you were possessed. Matthew furrowed his eyebrows, unsure of what I meant. Did he really not remember? I now became concerned, desperate to know answers. Why was he acting so strangely? Matthew took my hands in his and held them gently, rubbing his thumbs over the top of my hands.
Hey, is everything all right?
I almost glared. That was what I had asked him. I wasn't crazy. I knew that something was off, and I had to try to figure out what. I squeezed Matthew's hands instead. Matthew, I'm serious. You were staring at the fire, and your eyes just looked glazed and stuff. Pressing his lips together, he looked down, trying to discern what I meant, as if he didn't do what I had suggested he did. He pulled his hands, now worried. I didn't want to him assume I was making things up. You believe me, right? Matthew stared into my eyes, reading them as he nodded.
I do. I do. I don't know how to respond. I mean, I don't remember being in a trance.
Yeah, well, that's typically how trances work. As he said that, however, he suddenly curled over and held his head, hissing in pain. Oh, shit! No! Babes! Matthew! Quickly, Matthew collapsed onto his knees and gripped his head, digging fingers into his hair as I followed him down. Now I knew for sure something was definitely wrong. I kept Matthew's face, trying to read his expression, trying to figure out what was just wrong from sight. A moment passed before Matthew let out a gasp of breath, opening his eyes wide and panting for some fresh air to enter his lungs. His eyes painted his fear as if he had just encountered a nightmare within the moment that passed. Matthew, what happened? Matthew wouldn't speak, furrowing his eyebrows and shaking his head.
I heard someone calling to me.
Calling to you? For a moment, I believed it to be his mother. Maybe he was hearing what I heard in the human world. But why didn't I hear it anymore? It made no sense. Matthew shook his head and gritted his teeth.
It sounded like my mother. But how could she?
I took Matthew's hands and held them to my chest, catching his attention. Hey, let's go ask the others about this. It's not too late to go talk to them. Matthew suddenly shook his head and took his hands from mine, grasping my shoulders. Oh no! What?
It's all right, really. I don't need their help. We can figure this out on our own.
What? Matthew. I felt really bad. I had a really bad feeling about the situation. Matthew was getting put in trances and getting headaches and hearing his mother's voice. Why was he so reluctant to get help of his brothers? Well, I mean... Well... I don't know. I feel like we should insist. This was too mysterious and dangerous. We needed the help. Matthew, we need
Please, just trust me, okay?
Matthew stared deep into my eyes, pleading silently for me to trust him. I bit my lip, still not completely sure that this was the right choice. As I slowly let out a whine of complaint, Matthew gripped harder on my shoulders, not enough to hurt me, but enough to emphasize his point.
Please.
Well... Matthew seemed adamant. I swallowed my nerves and nodded slowly, taking in a breath and letting out a sigh. Matthew leaned forward and kissed my forehead, thankful that I was willing to trust him. However, trust wasn't the issue. I trusted Matthew very much. What I didn't trust was what was ever trying to influence him and hurt him. I just didn't want to leave this in the dark and didn't want us to hit a wall with what could potentially hurt Matthew more or make him do something even more odd, like my dreams. I grimaced before standing up, helping Matthew up. Come on, let's head to bed. Matthew nodded, agreeing to that right now sleep was something we probably needed. I led Matthew to bed and helped him in cuddling up to him and laying my head on his shoulder. Matthew?
Yeah?
Are you sure you'll be okay?
I'm sure. I promise. I'll figure this out in no time.
I nodded once more before closing my eyes. I had to let him try. If all else failed, I could go to the others for help. But not unless it became dangerous. Yeah, that's not going to work out. Things are going to go really bad. This is a bad idea. Still, something felt wrong about this entire situation. Yeah, well, I mean, you're in the demon realm, so, you know, there's strike one. First, there was something wrong with me, but now there was something wrong with Matthew. We had the worst luck. No, and they're totally not related, right? Totally unrelated. Yeah, idiots. I expected the night to take me away into a world of slumber, but was quietly awoken by Simon poking my side with his knife. What? I looked down at my side to see Simon waving his arms and pointing at the door, revealing it to be partially open with a familiar red eye poking through it. I stared, suddenly wide-eyed, but Diana didn't move from her spot, knowing I spotted her. Did she want me to go over there? Simon pulled at my hand, wanting me to go, so I snuck out of Matthew's arms and crept to the door, causing Diana to back away from it and give me the space I needed to leave the room. Diana?
Is everything all right?
Huh? Where was this coming from? I furrowed my eyebrows. What do you mean? Diana pressed her lips together and looked into the room for a moment before looking back at me with a serious expression.
I was doing my usual routine around the castle, and felt somewhat of a disturbance in the air, like something was trying to make contact with someone here. It was a weak wave, but...
I stared surprised. Someone was actually trying to contact Matthew? I became overjoyed to know that it was simple enough. Diana tilted her head at me, seeing my expression.
What? Did something happen?
Before I opened my mouth to speak, however, Matthew's plea echoed in my head. He wanted me to trust him. If I told Diana, I'd ruin his trust for me. I merely bit my lip, shaking my head. No, I'm just surprised is all. Diana raised an eyebrow at me, but I didn't budge. I didn't want to be the one to say anything until Matthew needed me to. Despite it fighting against every moral code in my body, I had to put some trust in Matthew. Eventually, Diana nodded before turning to leave.
I apologize for disturbing your sleep. Please, have a good night.
Oh, yes, me. With that, Diana left me alone in the hall. I stared mildly flabbergasted at the fact that she simply let it go. However, would she look into it more? I had to admit, I hoped so. I returned to Matthew's arms at night, hoping that everything would be okay. Well, it's not. It's not. The morning was unkind as I woke and yawned. I, feeling drowsiness, still tried to consume my mind and force it back to sleep. However, I had to train today, and so did Matthew. Speaking of Matthew, I turned my head to see Matthew rubbing his eyes, waking up alongside me. However, his grumble let me know that the night was not kind to him.
Is it morning already?
I nodded and gently leaned down, kissing Matthew's forehead. That seemed to lighten his mood as a happy smile danced across his lips, and he let out a happy sigh.
Good morning.
Good morning, my love. Morning. I smiled as I hovered over Matthew's face, seeing his beautiful blue eyes gaze into my eyes through the blur of sleep. With a sweet, infectious smile, Matthew reached a hand up and cupped my cheek.
You are so pretty. You know that?
Aww, sweet. I felt a blush creeping up on my face. The way he said it so casually made my heart flutter and had me forgetting about the world around us. It was like we were in our own little universe for a short amount of time. I nuzzled his hand and giggled. I didn't want the day to roll on to us getting ready to separate and train just yet. I wanted to sit back with Matthew and enjoy our time alone. No problems, no danger, just us. Matthew grew a small smirk before snaking his arms around me and pulling me against his chest, making me gasp and grab onto his shoulders, not wanting to crush him with my weight. However, Matthew smiled and squeezed me close.
No nightmare last night, huh?
Surprisingly, no. As he said it, I realized it. There was indeed no nightmare for me last night. I had a peaceful, dreamless night. I suddenly smiled and looked down at Matthew with a happy nod. Yeah, no nightmare. I had good sleep. Matthew chuckled before leaning up and kissing me softly, just enough for me to feel it. As he pulled away, I became curious about his own night. What about you? Matthew's smile faltered a bit as I asked, but shook his head slightly and gave his smile back. Oh, he's totally gonna lie to me.
It was rough.
Oh, okay.
I woke up a couple of times, but that was pretty much it.
No, it wasn't. You're a liar. There was more to the story, but I had to let it go. If he wanted me to trust him, then I had to with the full extent of my heart. I nodded and planted a light, feather-like kiss on his nose, making him chuckle beneath his breath. So, what's the plan for you?
Well, I figured I could skip some training and just spend some time with you.
With a playful smirk, I grabbed the nearby pillow and gently bounced it on him, making him fall back a bit.
Hey!
You know, training is important, Matthew. Matthew smirked and rolled us both over to have him on top of me, bouncing his pillow on me. God.
I can totally train with you in a never-ending pillow fight!
Who will win this battle? The succubus Matthew or the human Australia? Pillow fight.
I'm totally down. Oh, it was on. I quickly grabbed my pillow and swung it at Matthew, landing on target and causing him to roll off of me. With a grin, I arched my body in the opposite direction, hoping to land another hit on him, but Matthew quickly ducked and swung his pillow at me, hitting me with soft, fluffy impact. You should go into the shadow realm.
Gotcha!
The battle became intense as soon as we were double fisting trying to whack each other with our chosen weapons, while also avoiding the fireplace, the bench, and truly anything that looked expensive around the room. Regardless, we were immersed in our own world, ducking it out with feathers and cloth as we lost track of time. We barely even noticed the door open.
What's going on in...
As Diana's voice rang in through the air, I gasped in surprise and looked over the succubus holding 2 plates with stacks of pancakes on them. Oh, fuck yeah. Whoa! Whoa, okay. What frightened me and Diana was a sudden knife chucking itself in Diana's direction, causing her to sidestep and letting the knife rake through the stack, effectively nailing the pancakes to the wall beside her. Oh shit. Whoa!
Hey!
Diana and I looked to Matthew, seeing him panting and posed mid-throw. His eyes flashed back and forth between gold and blue, glaring hard at Diana, most likely in surprise from her sudden entrance. Once again, I was taken away by my fantasy and brought back to reality. Diana snarled and practically slammed the 2 plates she was holding onto the table, glaring daggers at Matthew. Yeah?
What in the 7 hells was that about?
Diana! As Diana took a step forward, Matthew suddenly shook his head and realized who was approaching him and who he essentially attacked, causing him to step back and place his hands in front of him.
Whoa, hold on!
What? I have to choose this? I mean, I can't stay out of it. I love you, Diana, but like, I mean, if he's gonna be my hubby, I gotta trust him. I gotta trust him. I guess I'll defend him. I reacted quickly, not wanting Diana and Matthew to start fighting. Besides, Diana took us by surprise. Matthew couldn't have known. I rushed over and placed myself between Matthew and Diana, holding my arms out to stop her. Diana, hold on. Diana stopped and glared down at me, now turning her frustration towards me.
What?
I opened my mouth to speak before Matthew rushed around me and pressed his hands together, bowing his head.
I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you. I thought it was an attacker and...
An attacker in my home? They would be dead before they even set foot through the gates!
I love Diana. I don't know, something about that. She's just like, do you dare imply that there is an assassin in my home? I looked to Matthew, seeing him grit his teeth and press his hands together hard, trying to gain some sort of form of forgiveness from the succubus who seemed to want to cut his throat open. Diana snarled quietly before slapping his hands away and gripping his chin, making his stare up at him. Oh shit.
The next time you dare to attack me will be the last time you feel your heart beating in your chest.
Well, shit, man. With threatening scowl, Diana pushed Matthew back and away from her, causing her to turn away and walk towards the exit of the room. I rushed to Matthew, catching him before he tripped down on his own feet.
Eat, then get to training. Don't waste time.
Well, shit, man. Man, that was alright then. Diana finally left, leaving me and Matthew lost in our own space once again. This time we were awake and we were aware of what's going on, mildly ashamed of the delusion we placed ourselves in before the sudden surprise of Diana. I hate it when the music stops. I'm always like, Matthew rubbed his head, looking to the floor. Yeah, you need to like, boy, you need to get your shit together. Like, gather it up into a pile. Just one pile. Only one pile of shit allowed in this room.
Man, I really screwed up.
Yeah, a little bit. Don't say anything, comfort him. Well, okay, he's babe, okay? I'm gonna comfort him. I'm not gonna be a dick. I knew that he messed up, but he needed to get himself together and fix his mistakes so he could move on and figure out the problems he already had. I wrapped my arms around him, nuzzling his shoulder. It's alright. I rubbed his shoulders and he rested his forehead against mine.
How the heck do I deserve you?
Well, you have saved me a couple times. That's good. Also, you will remain deserving me as long as you don't turn into demon lord, torturer person. All right? Okay, we're good. I merely smiled and kissed his cheek. Because you love me and I love you. With a chuckle, Matthew kissed my cheek and kind and nodded.
Right.
Matthew and I turned to our breakfast and ate what we could, with Matthew taking the plate he managed to attack. The pancakes almost slipped off the knife that was still embedded in the wall, causing Matthew to run and catch it in his empty plate. He didn't eat it and merely left it there, avoiding it like it had some sort of poison in it. We simply eventually separated train, letting the day roll. My favorite part. As soon as I arrived at the library to train, I stopped when I heard Diana's voice erupt from it.
Where is the flower?
I believe you were already informed as to what happened to it.
Flower?
Do not tell me you are blind to its significance.
I peeked in the room, confused as to what was going on. Diana, with a face full of irritated anger, leaned against the mantel of the fireplace as Shadow pored over his scrolls, as he usually did. He didn't even look at Diana as he spoke, disinterested in the topic of conversation.
It wasn't needed for the gate spell, so it was deemed unnecessary. It was tossed out as a result of that judgment.
Oh, that was what she was talking to that one girl about.
You do realize that flower is one of very few out there in this plane, correct?
And this should bother me. Why?
Hello, save the environment. We're not just saving the world for shits and giggles, alright? We're trying to make this a better place. You little shit. I could practically cut through the tension in the air with a knife. The way that they spoke to each other spoke volumes of their disdain for one another, so they actually don't like each other. Why was that the case, though? They were working for the same cause. Diana almost snarled, which surprised me.
It should bother you, because as consequence of your thoughtless action, I am putting your scouts in charge of finding another.
And why would I allow this?
Oh shit! Oh, look at that! Cool! I watched as purple and dark and black flames slowly emanted from Diana's body, causing Shadow to look over, straighten up, and take in the sight.
Because while you are their commanding officer, I am the head of this entire rebellion, and my orders outrank yours.
Diana glared hard at Shadow, but I could feel the intensity of her glare from the doorway, making a hard shiver run down my spine. Where did this Diana come from? I recognized her tone, but didn't want to imagine that this was the real her. As Shadow finally sighed, the tension died a bit.
As you wish. Another will be found without delay.
Diana's aura faded as she let out a sigh, calming down from her angry display. Something was wrong about how Diana presented herself. Still, she altered her tone.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. Hey, my babe knows how to get shit done, alright? Diana, she is a woman with a plan. She is Queen Bee. You don't go against Queen Bee, alright? Alright, I'm glad we agree. Moving on. Shadow only stared coldly at Diana as she pushed herself away from the fireplace and walked towards the door. Panicked to be found out for eavesdropping, I stepped out of my hiding spot as if I had just arrived, looking into the room. Diana stopped at the spot of me but closed her eyes and continued walking, arcing around me to get by.
Excuse me.
I watched as Diana left before walking to the library, now concerned.
You know, you are a terrible spy.
Huh? I don't know what you're talking about. I looked at Shadow, realizing he knew that I had been listening in to what had happened, and grimaced. Crap. I rubbed the back of my head, trying to calm myself of the embarrassed nerves racing in my head. Sorry. I was curious about what was happening.
It's nothing to be concerned with, just a waste of time, really. I expect you not to do that again. Do you understand?
No, I'm gonna do it, because I'm a Shadow. Oh. I actually can ask. I'm gonna press it, see how it goes. I pressed my lips into a fine line. I wanted to know what the hell went on. Why was Shadow keeping it to himself? I straightened up and resolved to confront him. I wanted to know what flower she was talking about. Shadow looked over and raised an unamused eyebrow at me.
Didn't I make myself clear? It's nothing to be concerned with.
Why can't I know?
Because it's not your place to know, human. Remember, you are only here until the Demon Lord is slain. Nothing you do here will matter in the long term, and it is worthless to investigate further.
I suddenly became agitated. Was he serious right now? Why was I even training at this point? He was acting high and mighty, as if he had a surefire way to beat the Demon Lord already. At my angry face, Shadow let out a small chuckle and turned back to his scrolls.
You're dismissed. I'm no longer interested in training you.
What? What? I stared dumbfounded. What the hell? Where'd this come from? As I stared, I felt my consciousness suddenly become relieved. You know what? Screw him. He was an arrogant ass and I didn't want to have to take his attitude. I was fine on my own. I glared and turned on my heel. Fine. With that, I left the room, ready to train on my own with my own abilities. What? Coward? Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Oh no, no, no. Yes, sir. Fine, asshole. It was better not to question it for now. I would learn eventually, but if Shadow wasn't going to tell me now, there was no way I was going to be able to force an answer out. I mean, that's true. Shadow looked to me, observing me for a moment before nodding and turning from the table.
Shall we begin?
I nodded, prepared to face whatever he had in store for me. What took me off guard was someone coming up suddenly from behind me and placing a knife at my throat. Oh shit. What?
Dead.
I froze. What did she mean? Shadow crossed his arms, raising an eyebrow.
Shama, a little too early.
As the person released me and moved the knife away from my throat, I turned with a hard glare to see the cloaked woman who had been talking to Diana before. She obediently looked to Shadow.
I apologize, sir.
Back to your place.
I guess that was meant to be part of my lesson. Shama bowed and quickly formed herself into a shadow, fading into the ground. I instinctively began to follow suit, but Shadow cleared his throat.
Pay no mind to that.
No, you can't just say that. What was that? I had a knife held to my throat without my warning. I was not prepared, and while that may have been some messed up point about war and not being prepared, Shadow was watching and could have stopped it. The only thing that ran through my mind was how my body suddenly became filled with adrenaline. Shadow stared blankly at the question and at me.
A misfired trap. Shama is meant to surprise attack you after I teach you your next lesson. Obviously there was a miscalculation, but that'll be fixed and done properly after the lesson is given.
Well, I certainly fucking hope so. I understood, wanting to be ready when the next time it happened, but something caught my attention, drawing my focus away from his words. As I stared at Shadow, I faintly noticed his hair swaying slightly in the air on his head. What the... There's no wind in the room. How is it moving? I focused my attention to his hair, wondering what it was doing, as Shadow raised an eyebrow at me.
What are you staring at?
I shook my head and avoided it. Why was I so focused on his hair? It was hair. As I thought that, however, his ponytail suddenly began to move, like a hand tapping its fingers on Shadow's shoulder and on his wrists. Whoa! I jumped back, pointing at his hair and earning a smug smile from Shadow. Why is your hair doing that? As Shadow suddenly glared at me, I tensed up.
Are you more interested in the hair or in your training?
I kept my mouth shut. I wasn't going to get anywhere by getting distracted, just like with my curiosity with Diana. If this was another lesson, then Shadow was teaching me properly. Still, my curiosity pecked wild at me, wanting me to desperately ask about it. Well, fuck, man. I stared at his hair, but I could feel something frightening coiling around my nerves. I didn't want to ask. It was better not to. Sorry, I'll pay attention. Shadow nodded, rolling his shoulders and forming a pure black dagger in his hand. As he looked at me, I understood what he wanted me to do, having watched his hand carefully. He was not one to actually talk me through anything. I focused on my hand, trying to imagine a dagger forming within it. It rounded my hand to form a shadow across my palm, knowing that I needed the darkness to help give it shape. Slowly, but eventually, the hilt of a dagger formed in my hand, allowing me to grasp it. The blade quickly jutted out of the end, finally completing its formation before it lowered to my side and I looked at
Become
Shadow.
aware of your surroundings. Your opponent is using the shadow plane, so you're at a disadvantage. But you can still defend yourself, as long as you pay attention.
That was why my attention was so important. I mentally wanted to slap myself for letting my curiosity take a hold of me. Now was not the time to mope, however. I had to focus. I nodded before looking around, trying to figure out how I was going to find Shama and defend myself before she got me and killed me. I wasn't sure how Shadows got around in the other plane, but I was going to find out. So here's the problem with this. He's saying you need to be paying attention to all your surroundings. Well, my character was doing that by being curious and focusing on his hair and all the other things. So by being focused, she's disarming her other senses and only focusing on him. That's not good. I looked at the ground, not seeing anything pass by me. then looked to the light sources. If I remembered anything from the day before, it was that you needed to control the light to distract your target or to protect your shadow from being used. I held my breath, trying to focus the light versus hearing my breathing whisper through the room. I wasn't going to let her take advantage of me. Suddenly, I faintly hear a flame whip to the side, causing me to turn and see Shama rushing at me with her knife. I quickly parried, pushing her back.
Again.
As quickly as she had come, Shama vanished once again to hide. I could tell I was going to get a workout. Soon enough, she began to attack in plain sight, to turn the room dark, even use my shadow against me. I had to maneuver around it all. I continued to fend off her attacks for the entire day until I was excused to my room for the night. Slowly padded back to my room, tired from the day. I needed rest, and I needed the comfort of my bed and Matthew's arms around me. As I walked in, however, I took in a sight I did not expect to see. Of course. Matthew held Simon in a full-body chokehold, crushing his body like a stress ball and glaring hard into his beady red eyes.
I'm gonna rip you apart!
Oh shit, what? Matthew! I rushed in and grabbed Matthew's hands, prying them apart and letting Simon slip between them onto the ground. Simon let out a squeak before running out of the room. Matthew, still for some reason enraged, took a step to follow him before I slammed my hand on his shoulder.
Get back here!
Matthew, stop! I gripped hard on Matthew's shoulder, causing him to turn to me and letting me grab onto his other shoulder. As I got a good look of his eyes, I gasped at the sight. His eyes were full of rage and anger as he planted in place. Whatever Simon did really made him go off the edge, or something was influencing him again. I suddenly became afraid, shaking underneath his gaze. Every fiber of my body completely began to spaz out as I became locked in his angry gaze. What was happening to me? I opened my mouth to try and speak, but no sound would dare come out of my vocal cords. It was like I was too frightened to press him or stop him. As Matthew continued to pant for air and stare at me, something in his mind slowly melted, causing his eyes to slowly widen in realization at what he had done and what he was about to do to Simon. The strange hold on my body faded away as his muscles relaxed, trying to breathe and regain control of whatever had clouded his judgment. As it finally became apparent that he had returned to sanity, Matthew's eyes began to droop in sadness.
What am I doing?
I don't know. Babes, you need help. Matthew pulled away from me, placing his hand between us and stepped back, staring at me in deep regret. I tried to step forward to try and comfort him, but he raised a hand to stop me, walking slowly over to the bed and sitting down, grasping his head.
Something happened to me. I don't know what.
I frowned as I slowly moved and sat next to him, and Shane, Matthew covered his face with his hand and curled over his knees, digging his fingers into his forehead.
I keep hearing my mother's voice telling me to come home and save her. Whenever I do, I completely lose control of myself. I can't remember what I did or why I did it, but I always manage to do something wrong.
I see. Much concern. Much concern indeed. I grimaced, remembering the random attack on Diana. I placed my hand on his shoulder as he shuddered and shook his head again.
I gotta fix this. There's gotta be some way to stop it from happening to me.
Matthew. It was painful to see him struggling. Still, I couldn't understand why he had to fight this alone. Why not go to the others for help? Matthew let out a sigh and slumped his shoulders further.
And let them help me? Like they've always done?
Yeah, there's no shame in it. As Matthew turned to me, I could practically see the shame in his eyes as he spoke.
Every time I was in trouble, they'd always come and help. Every time I do something, I'm treated like a damn kid.
Oh. Yeah, I could see how that's, demeaning, because, I'm the oldest of my siblings, and, when, other adults or anyone treats me oh, you don't know anything, oh, you're young, oh, whatever. It's I'm 21, I know I'm, a baby adult, but, you don't have to, treat me like I'm a, baby. You know what I mean? Yeah. Matthew turned his head away and gritted his teeth, forming fists and laying them on his knees, tightening them in aggravation.
There's a reason why I didn't ask them to help with the wedding. I don't want them babying me and doing everything like I'm some sort of stupid moron who needs everything done for him.
But you're not a stupid moron. Asking for help doesn't mean that you're looked down on.
I want to do this on my own. I can figure this out without their help. I'm not even the youngest, but they still treat me like I am, even Damien. I don't want that anymore.
I guess that makes sense, but I don't know if this is the time to be like, you can still ask for help with dignity as opposed to lone wolfing it and getting into serious trouble. You know what I mean? I was speechless. Did Matthew really feel that kind of pressure from his brothers? My mind went back to the first day I had met them, how Eric treated Matthew like a little boy despite Matthew being so close to his age. As the grimace of realization appeared on my lips, Matthew let out a shaky sigh.
I can't ask for their help. I'm sorry.
Take his hand or hug him. Well, he always hugs me. So, I felt terrible for Matthew. He definitely acted like a kid, but it seemed like only I remembered that he wasn't one. After all, I had been with this man for over 2 years of my life. I wrapped my arms around him, hugging me to him and making him gasp in surprise.
Huh?
I buried my face in his shoulder, silently apologizing to him with a soft kiss on his neck. Slowly, Matthew wrapped his arms around me as well, taking in a breath and relaxing once more within my arms. Yeah, hugging him and kissing his neck is kind of more like an adult form of comfort, whereas taking his hand is like taking a little kid's hand or something, so I think I made the right choice. A peaceful moment, a silent passed between us before Matthew softly pulled away and looked me in the eyes.
I don't understand why you like me at all, you know?
You're adorable. You're sweet. Yeah, those are great reasons. What? Confused, I stared into Matthew's eyes, trying to find the origin of where his statement came from. Matthew, however, took my hands and grasped them in his, looking down at them.
I love you so much, but I'm not mature like James or the others. I don't understand at all how someone like me could be remotely likable.
Well, that's partly your charm. I mean, being mature and dark and just serious all the time, it gets boring, letting the child within us all have fun and, play. It's a good thing. You don't want to, being old and grouchy in spirit drains life from you. You gotta keep your inner child alive, even while managing with the adult realities that comes with age. That is my life philosophy. Glad you know. Stop. I love my response. Just stop. Stop right there. Stop right there, criminal scum. I glared, not wanting him to degrade himself. Yeah, you're my fiancé. Don't degrade yourself. God. As he looked back up at me, he flinched at my stare, but I needed to get to him to see that I loved him and cared for him for every part of him. It didn't matter that he wasn't like his brothers. He was mine and I loved him. And I loved him because he's not his brothers, right? I love him for him, not just yeah. I squeezed his hands, locking his gaze to mine. I love you for you, Matthew. I don't care what your brothers act like or how you're not like them. I don't care. I fell in love with you, not them. Matthew remained silent, staring deep into my eyes and taking in everything that I was saying with a broken but hopeful gaze. He really cared about me and didn't want to hurt me, but I didn't want to hurt him either. Whatever this is, whatever thing is trying to control you, we'll fix this. But don't you dare degrade yourself like that. All these it's the one choice is soft and the other one is whatever. Yeah, one is intense and the other one is a little less intense. Well, we'll kiss him. At last I leaned forward and pressed my lips to his, locking his to mine in a loving kiss. Matthew stared wide-eyed before very slowly closing his eyes and melting into the lip lock. I wanted him to know, or I wanted to show him strong and how wonderful he was. I fell in love with him, not just for his childish side, but how he made me feel with every part of him. He was very much an adult when I was locked in his arms and drowned in his kisses constantly. I was so lucky to have him as mine, and I wanted to remind him of that with every part of me, mind, body, and soul. Oh shit, did I accidentally go into a sexy scene? Yes, I did. Load! No, go away! No sexy scenes for you. Press my forehead to his, staring into his blue irises, and let my words burn into his mind. I love you, Matthew. Matthew remained silent for a moment, letting the air take hold of the sound, before he very slowly smiled and nodded, nuzzling his head against mine.
I love you too.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you do. We remained there, taking in the sounds of our synchronized breathing and letting our hearts eventually beat as one. We would get through this. We would. Sleeping that night filled us with determination for the next day. I was hopeful, rooting that everything was going to be all right. You keep saying that. Things just keep getting worse. You should just stop saying that. Of course, not everything turns out the way we want. The morning came at last, rising me from my sleep. However, surprisingly, I was full of energy, ready to go and take on the day's training. However, I quickly realized that I was alone. Oh shit. Matthew? I sat up, looked around, not seeing him anywhere in the room. Worry crept into my mind. What if he left to do something he was influenced to do? What if he tried to figure out a way to force the influence out of him? I gripped my bedsheet to remove it from my body when I looked up to see the door swing open, revealing Matthew holding 2 plates of food for me.
Good morning!
Oh, ohayo gozaimasu. I became dumbstruck. Matthew? What was with him and why was he so up so early? He wasn't exactly an early bird. Matthew grinned as he walked over and presented a plate of delicious-looking fruit, eggs, bacon, toast, and pancakes I had ever seen. My mouth went agape at the mere sight and smell, and I slowly took it from Matthew's hands. Matthew? When did you make this?
This morning, duh! When else would I have been able to make it?
I don't know. I'm suspicious. I looked up at him. He seemed very happy and cheerful, despite everything that happened the night before. Did he manage to drive out the influence? I doubt that. You probably just comforted him. As I noticed the dark circles under his eyes, I could tell that the night had become somewhat of a struggle, so maybe that was indeed the case. I doubt it. He probably just couldn't sleep, so he's just like, I'm gonna go cook. Still, something in my gut pressed me to be cautious. Something wasn't entirely right about the situation, even though seeing Matthew being happy made me happy too. I slowly began to dig in, savoring every delicious bite and almost forgetting my worries about it. Wow, this is amazing. Matthew let out a happy sigh and nodded.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna go to training now.
I suddenly shook my head, trying to take in what he just said. He's going to go to training now? I looked at him as he began to turn around, holding out an arm for him. Whoa, hold on there.
Bye!
Bye? Despite my protest, Matthew left the room, practically skipping out of it. What the hell? Something now was definitely wrong. I lowered my plate and stood, racing towards the door, but was stopped by Diana, who was about to step in. Wow!
Oh, I'm sorry.
Diana looked at me up and down before looking at the plate of food I had left on my bed, and looking at the plates of food she had in her hand, obviously for me and Matthew.
When did you...
I shook my head. Diana didn't know Matthew was making me food. I became more and more worried. Diana stepped in and placed her plates on a nearby table, crossing her arms in concern.
All right. Do you now wish to tell me what is going on?
I mean, yes. I naturally bit my lip. I couldn't tell her, but something about this was warning me that whatever was influencing Matthew could have gotten worse. I began to internally panic, but I kept a look of calm on my face. Matthew just made me breakfast, that's all.
When was this?
I grimaced, looking away. Apparently this morning. Diana shook her head. God, fuck. Diana shook her head and pressed her fingers to her temples, slowly exhaling an irritated sigh.
That boy is seriously concerning me now.
Doshite. Yeah, don't call him a boy. Don't call him a boy. I didn't mean to explode. Oh shit. I didn't mean to explode, but after hearing Matthew's worries the night before, I couldn't help but naturally defend him. I hope I didn't fuck that up. Diana stared wide-eyed at me, most likely wondering where my sudden outburst came from. Even though I had vocally challenged her, Diana let out a sigh and crossed her arms.
Regardless, I'll have people watch over him. If he does anything out of the ordinary, I will be the first to know.
Well, good. Diana gave me a hard stare for a moment before turning and leaving the room. I became torn. Matthew didn't want help, but it seemed like he very much needed it. What if this all was something I was overreacting from? What if he was hiding something vitally important? I gripped my head and shook it. Stop it, calm down. That's right, I had to calm down first. This wasn't going to be easy, but the truth would come out one way or another. I ate my food and prepared for today, praying that I would not hear of Matthew killing someone. Not a good thing to be worried about your fiancé. Then I stepped into the library. Shadow turned from his scrolls to look at me. That was a first. Was he going to greet me properly now? His raised eyebrow threw me off, though, as if he wasn't expecting me. I walked to the center of the space, summoning my dark dagger and becoming mentally ready for more reactionary defense training. However, Shadow raised his hand to me, causing me to relax a bit.
Your training is over.
What? Wait, what? What did he mean? I opened my mouth to protest, but Shadow held his stern gaze.
I have taught you how to defend yourself and how to traverse a plane that renders you temporarily untouchable. That was all I was required to teach. You are free to train on your own without a mentor now.
I felt like I was being tossed into the deep end of a lake. I wasn't told anything about losing my trainer at any point. Still, I knew what he was saying was the truth. He was right. I wasn't expected to learn how to really fight or how to beat someone. All this training was for me to get the ability to defend myself. I had completely forgotten about the reasons I had even started. Still, I wanted to learn more. I felt that I was losing a golden opportunity, and I wanted to push forward and to learn something extraordinary. It was one thing to duck and dodge an invisible opponent, but it was another thing to truly use dark magic. Shadow turned away and went back to the table.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I must return to my research. We have a siege in less than 3 days, and I can't waste any more time.
Aw, it was just a waste of time? That hurt a bit. I was wasting his time. I felt some part of me yell that I had wasted my own time. Why was I even here? Teach me something else. Shadow looked over his soldier, locking eyes with me. However, he didn't say anything. I could feel his gaze burn into my eyes, judging my words and my desire to learn. I wanted to know something else. I didn't want my training here to end with me going off on my own. I had only trained for 2 days, for goodness sake. I wanted more. Shadow slowly straightened and turned to face me, crossing his arms.
Very well. I would like to see if you are able to perform a rather difficult spell.
I'm ready. I suddenly became confused. Was it truly something powerful? I thought of 100 things he was going to teach me, but I remained at attention, listening.
The spell I'm about to teach you will become your best weapon in battle. However, it takes a large portion of energy. You may not even stay conscious after casting it. Are you prepared to try?
Fuck yeah. I took a moment to consider it. While it seemed powerful, something about it seemed off. How I could possibly pass out? Why would I essentially be jumping levels so fast? Was it something I should be afraid of? Oh, we're gonna try it. We're gonna go for it. I wanted to know. I wanted to experience something new, and if this power was going to be, as he said, my greatest weapon, then I had nothing to lose. It would be worth the attempt. Shadow stared at me a moment, mostly likely judging me as like he usually did, before nodding and pointing to the wall away from the fireplace.
There.
I looked over and became lost. I saw my own shadow, simply lying against the wall and flickering slightly from the firelight. What was he wanting me to do with it? Before my eyes, my trainer's own shadow crawled up the wall beside mine and began to peel itself off the wall. I could not believe what I was seeing. It was almost cartoon-like. Soon enough, his shadow was standing on its own in mid-air, away from the wall. Was he teaching me how to use my own shadow? I closed my eyes, trying to focus and concentrate, before looking to my shadow and attempting to will it off the wall. It wouldn't move, much to my displeasure, causing me to focus harder. It had to come off the wall somehow. My shadow began to quake, and almost shudder against the wall in defiance, making me glare hard at it. Come on, get the fuck off that wall. It's not to the window to the wall, okay? It's to the window to the fireplace. Shook violently before finally starting to push itself off the wall into full three-dimensional being. I stared as it settled onto its feet and stood attention for me, as if awaiting my orders. I'm so happy. This is by far one of the coolest things I had done. This is so cool. I felt my energy pulse, draining slowly to maintain the spell, and took a breath. Shadow, however, clapped his hands a couple times.
Well done, human.
Yeah! Fuck, man! I grinned back at him, watching him form a dark sword in his hand and passing it to his shadow with a look of confusion. At his silence, I tried to mirror him, forming a shadowy blade in my hand in the same way I'd formed my dagger and passing it to my shadow. For some reason, staring at my shadow holding a sword seemed off to me, but maybe it was because I was a human casting this magic for the first time. There were always times for firsts, after all, and this was definitely an impactful first. Shadow lifted his hand and pointed it towards the door. Obeying the silent command, the shadow walked to the door and stood guard. How did it know to do that without being told? Of course, Shadow wasn't going to tell me. I looked at my shadow and tried to think of what I could have it do. There were many things. It was hard to decide. Gazing around the room, there were many places it could go. However, I became curious about the upper level of the library. I pointed in the air at the upper balcony, feeling the need to verbalize my demand echo through my body. Go. With a blink, my shadow crouched and leapt off the ground, almost flying through the air and grabbing onto the railing of the upper floor. I stared, jaw dropped, as it vaulted itself over the ledge and turned to face me. That's so cool. Whoa. I looked at Shadow, seeing him give a mildly impressed smirk towards my shadow.
I'm rather shocked. It's a shame to think that you're merely a human. You'd make a fine assassin.
That's awesome. There was a genuine compliment. I felt a little surprised to hear him say that without some sort of insult tacked on. I mean, he did insult your humanity, but I quickly shook it off. If I had learned anything from his experience, it was not to let my guard down. Luckily, I didn't. I smirked as I noticed Shadow's own entity try and creep up on my shadow. In reply, I quickly shouted, "Defend!" My shadow acknowledged my command, and as if it knew where its enemy was, it turned and braced itself as my trainer's shadow tried to slice through it. Both swords clashed, causing a splash of dark matter to erupt from the impact, but as soon as it happened, Shadow dispelled my entity with a smirk of his own.
Well done. Very well done.
I grinned from ear to ear, my shadow disappearing on its own. However, Shadow raised an eyebrow.
Your practice is not over. Again.
I felt another smirk grace my lips, finally. I trained through the day, stopping every now and then when my energy was low, and refueling with food and a break. I was happy to have this new ability, but he hadn't been kidding. It definitely wore me out. This is so cool. I like his. I just wish we would know more about him. Like, we still don't know anything. I quickly walked to my room, wanting to make it there before Matthew. As I turned the corner... As I turned the corner to the hall my room was in, however, a large number of shouts echoed.
Grab him! Don't let him get away!
Oh, shit.
Let go of me!
I stared wide-eyed as guards rushed into my bedroom, dragged Matthew out by his arms. I was even more surprised to see him slightly battered and covered in blood. What? I took a step forward to rush in and see what was going on, but a hand stopped me and pulled me back. I looked over and stared as Sam gripped my shoulder, glaring ahead at his brother. Sam, what's going on?
Matthew did something really fucking stupid.
Okay. Ripping Sam's hand from my shoulder, I turned around and glared, almost snarling in anger. What do you mean? What did he do? Sam looked at me, unfazed by my anger, and walked forward ahead of me, following the group of soldiers and Matthew down the hall. I did the same, now desperate to know what was going on. As we arrived at the Great Hall, Matthew was tossed into the center of a room where Rabbit had constructed a large magic circle. As Matthew fell to his hands and knees on it, the circle activated to form a large barrier around him. Oh shit, man. Frantic Matthew now rushed at the walls, slamming into them, hopefully to be set free. He even formed multiple knives and tried to tear through the walls, only ending with them ricocheting and landing on the floor.
Release me! No!
Matthew! I rushed forward trying to touch the barrier, but was forcibly pulled back by Irene and Irdessa. I flailed in their arms, struggling against their hold, but became still as Diana entered the room with a large bloody handkerchief in her hand.
You come into my castle, eat my food, rest in my rooms, and have the utter gall to kill one of my guards and try to steal war plans?
No, it couldn't have been. I stared in at Matthew as he locked eyes with Diana, sneering and pressing up against the barrier.
Well, well, well. If it isn't the Queen of the Rebellion. I gotta tell you, you look like crap after all these years.
What the fuck? Diana's face remained stone cold as she passed the handkerchief to one of the nearby guards and stepping forward, pressing her hand to the barrier.
Looks.
Oh, his mother! His mother totally possessed him. That's what's going on. Oh my gosh. Okay, 1 second. I have got to get a drink, which it's like literally 2 feet away. I just gotta actually stand up to get it. Oh, the inconvenience. Oh shit. Okay. This is the best. Lux. Oh no! On her word, the barrier suddenly seemed to brighten with light, lightning, shocking Matthew within it. Ah! Don't hurt my husband! Matthew, no! I began to struggle more, wanting this to stop. Soon enough, it did as Diana pulled her hand away from the barrier and glared into it. Matthew, having been electrocuted, fell to his hand and knees, panting wildly.
I can smell you, Demon Lord.
I froze. The Demon Lord. He was behind this? I thought back to his mother, but... I thought it was his mother, but the Demon Lord? I looked back at Matthew, seeing him chuckle despite being in utter pain.
You figured me out, huh? You may have locked me away in my castle, but my bond to my blood is unbreakable.
I don't think that's true. Matthew pounced off the ground and slammed into the barrier wall, grinning from ear to ear at Diana.
And when you come, I will be ready. I know all of your little plans, and will make sure that I completely destroy your precious army, one pathetic soldier at a time. Once I do, I'll make Zeketu my heir, and finally take over the rest of this godforsaken plane, for good.
This time, however, Diana smirked and tapped the barrier between Matthew's eyes, her irises brightening to a sadistic gold color.
And this is where you fail in war, Demon Lord. Who said we ever wrote anything down about our plans?
Matthew stared astonished at Diana before snarling madly.
You're lying!
Test me, mongrel. I will prove it on the day we lay siege upon your pathetic castle and dominate your puny army.
Despite how twisted the situation was, the rebel leaders and guards in the room began to nod and smirk at Matthew in agreement with Diana's words. Diana, however, pressed her face against the barrier.
And I swear to you, this war will end with you dying by the hands of a succubus.
The guards around Diana cheered as Matthew continued to glare hard at Diana, clawing at the barrier wall, trying to get to her with no avail. Diana straightened back up and
As
scoffed.
for your son, we'll need to do a little surgery.
Oh shit, no. Surgery? I pulled at Irene's and Eurydice's hands, staring at Diana like she was a madwoman. Surgery? What the hell did she mean? Without another word, Diana placed her hand on the barrier and sent another wave of electric shocks into the barrier before Matthew finally passed out entirely. Oh, no! At last, Eurydice and Irene released me, letting me rush forward and kneel at the barrier. My hand pressed against it and peered in to see Matthew lying unconscious on the floor. I looked up at Diana as she turned and glared at her. Why did you do that? Diana glared back at me before turning away from me, her arms crossed.
Why did you hide this from me?
No, I deserve an explanation. As Diana turned her back to me at my explosion, I felt my body instantly froze in fear underneath her sudden golden gaze.
And one of my men deserves not to be dead. Because of your little secret, this boy managed to lose control to whatever has been possessing him and killed one of my top-ranking officers in order to find my decoy battle plans.
Oh shit, who died? I let that sink in. Matthew had killed someone. The influence on him really forced him to kill someone. I couldn't believe it. As Diana released me from her enthrallment, I buckled my hands to my knees, panting for air.
Was hiding this worth it? Was his precious pride truly worth the life of one of my men?
I shut my eyes, knowing how wrong this situation was. Matthew was trying. He was fighting to stop whatever was taking control of him. He needed to do it on his own. However, before I could think of speaking back, James and Sam stepped forward in front of me, blocking me from Diana.
Give him Diana. He wasn't in control of himself.
And now you're defending him?
Shut the fuck up! You don't understand what he's been through.
And I don't care! One of my men is dead because of him! Controlled or not, it was his hands that took his life. No amount of pride can justify that.
The brothers silenced themselves as I took everything in. Matthew had killed someone, the brothers understood, and Diana had essentially been betrayed. Part of me screamed that this was all my fault. I didn't open my mouth to fix this. I didn't let anyone know what Matthew was going through. However, Matthew was desperate to do this himself, even though he failed in the end. I lowered my head to the ground, gritting my teeth and trying to stop myself from crying. Carrie and Twilla rushed to my side, wrapping their arms over me in an attempt to comfort me, but I couldn't feel anything but despair for what was going on. Don't apologize, or apologize. Well, I feel like it's kind of not my place to apologize. It's like, I don't know. I'm going to try not apologizing. I know it sounds weird, but it wasn't him, you know. Despite everything, however, it was my choice. I trusted Matthew and I wanted to help him in any way I could. He was a man I loved, and if I didn't trust him, then I truly couldn't deserve his love. Well, I mean, he killed someone. Whatever. I gripped the ground and glared up once more at Diana, seeing her stare down at me in expectancy. I am sorry for what happened, but I am not sorry for hiding it. Diana. It's like... Okay, that's fair. I felt her glare slightly at me, but I let the feeling roll off my back. I hid it because I loved him and because I believed in him. This was a terrible circumstance, but I had to try and believe him. Matthew wanted to be self-reliant. He wanted to stop having his brothers come and rescue him, and if you can't see why he needed to do that, then you need to open your eyes. Estrella was actually saying that. Oh shit, my bad. I thought that was just her inner monologue. Silence lingered in the room as Diana continued to bore her eyes into my soul. At last, Diana let out an irritated sigh.
Enough. We need to figure out how to break this hold the Demon Lord has on him.
Everyone in the room... Okay, so, real quick. I understand her anger, but she should totally understand the feeling of influence because in the Damien route I had her train me. And when she trains you, you learn that the reason that she was such a bitch in the last game is that she made a deal with heaven, and it basically gave one of the fates was able to influence her, and like she couldn't control it. So she should know that, feeling completely 100%. So just saying. I mean, it sucks that someone lost their life though. That's pretty bad. Everyone in the room seemed to agree. I rubbed my face and slowly stood, agreeing as well, and now ready to fix what had happened. Diana looked at the guards over her shoulder and barked orders.
A chair, a bucket of sweet flowers, and a knife.
The soldiers nodded and saluted their queen before rushing off. Diana shook her head and placed her hand on the barrier.
What on earth could have made the control so strong?
His mother.
His mother. Everyone looked to Damien, seeing him look intensely at his fallen brother with worry.
I can hear her voice, pleading with him to wake up. She keeps apologizing for making him do what he did.
So it is the mother influencing him.
So his mother is to blame?
No. The Demon Lord is still the one who made him do what he did. The mother was a weakness of his, and only amplified his control.
Diana sneered at Matthew's unconscious body as the soldiers from before rushed in and placed a chair beside her and the buckets beside it. Diana slowly sat down and crossed her legs, holding out her hand and feeling a knife being placed in it by a third guard.
We need to figure out how to block his mind from the Demon Lord's control. Once we do that, we can try to dispel it, while the Demon Lord's power isn't using Matthew's energy.
What is happening right now? Taking a purple peach-shaped fruit from the large basket, Diana began to peel it and slice it open, revealing a black center. However, her focus remained on Matthew.
It will take me some time, but I think I can manage it.
Are you sure?
I am. Everyone may go and sleep.
I don't know how I feel about that. Everyone slowly nodded and began to leave the room. I, however, stood still, not wanting to leave Matthew alone. As Diana noticed me, she glared softly.
Go to your room and rest. I will call you if something happens.
I'm not going anywhere. Her words were venomous, warning me of the thin line I was walking across. As she placed a fruit slice in her mouth, I conceded defeat and left the room, staring at Matthew in utter worry before I exited. That night, I slept alone. I was filled with different emotions: worry, sadness, anger, betrayal, horror. Everything mixed and danced within me as I let out a heavy sigh. This would be a long night. Oh my goodness. I was barely able to eat or leave my room the following 2 days. I stayed in my room, trying to calm down and take everything in. Matthew was a prisoner. and Diana had to pull the control out of him somehow. With that being said, I think that's where I'm going to leave it off. Diana's routes were so short. I had no idea that this, like, just one route alone would take this long. I have a feeling that this is actually getting closer to the end, but, like, oh my goodness. It's been almost 2 hours. I think it is time. We will continue this in the next one. I have 80 saves. I really need to, like, stop. We will continue this next time. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. Hope you like the route so far. I think that, honestly, I feel like the extra characters are the most interesting part, whereas, like, the romance route is actually kind of, like, secondary. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. It's kind of nice, though, instead of having this typical romance route where you're trying to romance them and you're trying to, like, whatever. Instead, it's like you're trying to continue to be loyal and loving, and I think that's super important in relationships in general, and it's kind of like a fact of love that gets kind of glossed over in the end, where it's like, oh yeah, you're with the person you love, and now you got to continue to love them and cherish them forever. And it's not always easy. So that's what I love about this game so far. Anyway, I will now let you leave this plane. You are free to go. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.